Yeah, one of the other people I interviewed, David Breer at 11FS, and he said out there on if you haven't got yourself ready for remote working, then you're going to really struggle, basically. But there's many companies that are not ready for. I mean, certainly my industry nobody works remotely. We don't scrum teams. I think if you're a people business where you feed off each other, this is a whole new world for us. It's not to say you can't adapt though, but what would be how do you build a successful culture of people feeding off each other without being physically together?
Well, I think it's going to take a little bit of time and energy if you haven't done it before to understand how to do it, and what works. And, it's sort of I think people prophesizing what is it going to be like.
Yeah.
And I'm confident we'll get back to normal. On one level, I suspect there'll be people like myself that will definitely like to be back in the office again and have that social interaction, and get out of my civilian clothes and back in a suit and tie.
You're a nightmare. You like to be in the office at 5 a.m. going for a run.
So I think there's an element. I think what this is going to help though is break down that stereotype or that challenge of, oh well, you can't do that. You got to be here to do that. And so I think the opportunity for, whether it's because people have family needs, whether somebody just says, I just need to do some other stuff and be somewhere else, but I can still be part of all of this. And that all is a huge opportunity, and the proving that that's working. Going from scratch to interacting. Well, I suppose on one level, most of us now have gotten used to some sort of video engagement. Yeah. And I think that will probably become a little bit more natural and an opportunity for people to build on top of it. But again, I'm of the belief that human beings are social creatures, and they want to have that connectivity, and doing it constantly down an electronic means is not going to be ultimately the way that people are going to say that's how we'll do it forever more. I think it just complements and says you can do a lot of other stuff that doesn't require people all to be physically together. I think there's an interesting opportunity. Whilst on one level you could argue the world's moving into maybe forget globalization, it's going to come back to everybody working, or one country first mentality, right? Yeah. But all of this actually gives an argument that you could say, well, you could actually stand up and operate a more global team.
Oh, absolutely. And the boundaries that, I'm working on engagements in the US at the moment, and the physical, and I like to meet everybody, I like to do all that, but now my meeting everybody is like this. So it changes the cycle. There's no reason why I can't do headhunting in other countries. And I know I have 2 consulting firms that previously haven't been able to win international engagements, but are now. So I think there is opportunity there as we break down those barriers. But I do think, though, the mental health challenge, the kind of connectivity of humans, that'll always, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe I'm old-fashioned, probably.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's going to be, I think, just another avenue, and allow certain possibilities to be taken advantage of. But I think one benefit, as I said, is you don't need to necessarily tie somebody to their chair in the office every day. They have that flexibility. I've had some clients making comments about it might change their real estate footprint.
Yeah,
it's required. I guess I think that's a possibility. Again, depending on the organization and depends on the business, how much infrastructure do you need to rely on? And I think, it's interesting to see, I don't know if you saw the article, Citadel, it looks like, hired out a hotel down in Florida and took the whole place over, and then moved all their traders in, kitted it out. And I imagine they did the maths and thought, what, if we can keep going, it's worth us purchasing and doing something like that. Now that just tells you, in essence, for something like that where you're probably doing trades on picoseconds, you're not going to do that on a home broadband system, right?
Yeah. There's certain things that there's a limitation, but running the maths, I suppose, on how you can make that. So there is certain physical presence, but I do think we've been already working towards different models for city real estate, for example. And I'm sure this will impact that going forward. Do you think it will make a difference on gender, on getting women back to work, all that sort of stuff?
Well, hopefully it gives you more opportunity. If somebody says, you know what? Well, there's two things. I think there's the ongoing challenge of pivoting off of an idea that you've got to work, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 8 p.m. every day in particular industries. And I guess I'm focusing more on financial services. And my wife and I talk about this too. And, that's a little bit old think. I think absolutely when you are in a service-oriented environment, you need to be responsive and out in front of what your customer or your client needs are. However, at the same time, depending on the type of work, it should be goal or milestone driven. And if somebody says, look, I need this done by tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. Okay, Jemma, you say, all right, fine. It'll be there for you tomorrow morning. Now, you may do something at home and decide you want to do yoga for the rest of the afternoon, and from midnight till 4 a.m. you'll do it, or you've got to take care of your girls or whatever. But I think that's one angle of it, of changing, what's, because you want to work the hours that I want you to work, et cetera, is not necessarily the right thing. The other is absolutely you're focusing on it. Well, I could do some of this in the office, and later I can pick it up and be equally as productive and get it done. So hopefully it allows a little bit more flexibility and says not everybody has to operate the same way.
And I think that's the whole cultural and behavioural changes that need to change in order for this to work really effectively going on. I think you just have to have a mindset shift, don't you, that work is work, whether you're at home or in the office. And that's probably the thing I've struggled with is, in my mind, when I'm in an office, I feel more productive, but using your hours different. I earn back 4 hours a day now. So I've got 4 more hours. That it's crazy.
But that's the flip side of the danger. So you can get on, and I've even now forced myself that I'm trying not to start by a certain time every morning, because I know I will basically sit in this chair and do video conferences
and never leave.
4 hours straight. And home and work start to bleed together. Same thing is like every night I shut everything off. It's physically powered down to call it quits. And I think it's interesting, having spoken to a number of people, it's that commute home. Whilst it might be quite hellish being packed on the tube or a bus or what have you, the fact of the matter is you've got now a break between ending and your home. So I think that's one angle of it, and getting yourself so you're not caught on being constantly on, and for mental sanity, which is interesting. I think the other thing, which is, again, back to my example of the programmers, or the developers rather, when you're sitting together, you can have a quick chat. When we're not, then it's like today, Jemma, are you free at 3:30, and we'll start exactly 3:30. Not, well, we could have, if we were sitting near each other, we could have picked this conversation up, an hour and a half ago when we both were sitting there. Oh, let's go grab a cup of coffee and we'll do it at the same time. So I think, that's the other side I've seen of this, is like everything is regimented to a particular time slot, and it quickly gets filled up the whole day with lots of meetings and things, which you go, in the past, half of those could have probably been nailed in a quarter of the time in just an impromptu session.
That is true. And I wonder whether this probably already exists. You're much more au fait with your technology than I am. But I imagine in time that I'll be able to just see my team and have a productivity, have a digital workplace. And I'll just be like, oh, David, I'll click on your face, and if you're available, you can take that call with me right then, And I wonder if that is the future, that literally we'll have screens available with a quick coffee chat with you.
You'll be checking how productive they are and how many keystrokes they are.
I will definitely be doing that. If they're all watching me now, they can see that that's exactly what I'll be doing. But you haven't got small kids in the house to deal with like I have. But it's your daughter who's doing her A-levels, isn't it?
Well, so she should have been home anyways now, like most, I think, school kids for break. And we would have been studying for her A-level exams, which would have started, I guess, in May-ish beginning of May. And so what that's turned into is effectively exams are replaced by the teachers providing a grading system based on some sort of calculation or formula that's being created. What's lucky for us is that she's applied to both US and UK universities, and she's decided to go to a US university. So in essence, that's all been kind of now taken out of our hands in the sense that they don't need any more grades and things like that. I guess the trick is how do you stay busy?
Yeah.
So initially, she did have to produce some some papers to complement the grading system. So she wrote those papers. And then the rest of it now is that she's been relearning her Spanish, trying to brush up on her maths, doing some other stuff. And somehow, last night, I guess she had a Zoom session with a bunch of her mates. So I think it's, trying to stay sane is the big thing.
I think that is it. That is the big thing for me as well, like that mental health bit. I don't think I realised how weird it would feel. It's Eva's birthday next week and doing a little virtual party for her. And they're actually coping with it a lot better because I guess it's both of them. And to them, I guess it's a bit of an adventure. But as you realise how much, I've realised like, I would literally pay £100 for a cup of coffee right now. Like go and sit in a coffee shop, have a cup of coffee, watch the world go by. Like that is the little thing that I'm missing. But are you doing anything like self-development wise as well? I'm learning Spanish like your daughter. So.
Oh, I wish. Well, I should probably do that to brush up. Now, I think at the moment I'm still kind of consumed with doing work.
I bet you are. Yeah. Where do you see the opportunity? What do you think we'll be hiring for in the future?
Well, I guess it kind of depends, in terms of how the market goes. I guess in FS, I think the winners are probably going to be focusing right now on products and services going forward, and the opportunities that exist there. I think those that may be a bit more challenged are going to be consumed, with restructuring.
Yeah.
At the moment, and I guess that's the danger is they get consumed in doing that and they miss the opportunity. So what are the products? People are going to need different lending products and solutions that the banks will be able to support that go beyond the government financing, but just sort of generally how does it work in the medium term, because we're obviously going to live in low interest rates for a long time, and that's going to have an impact. Everybody's going to have probably, cost, and how do you do that? Digital, I think this just emphasizes the digital play even more so.
Speeds it up, the digital play.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's still a lot of areas where it's lagging quite a bit. Across the industry, when I was talking to some colleagues in the insurance sector, which is still. Down to people reading, liability contracts and everything to really understand what they're getting into, through to, underwriters who do face-to-face meetings, which is interesting, because we've gotten used to, opening a bank account and managing everything on that. Yeah. So why wouldn't I do the same thing for, the normal insurance activities, and then, triage the activity of a more complicated requirement to then a personal interaction, which could now be done this way, in fact. Yeah, and you could be bringing up a whiteboard and we could work through, or, things that could be shared. So that kind of stuff, I think, and people that understand that'll be important.
That's the most difficult shift, isn't it? And I think that is why insurance in some sectors are behind, is that it's about culture. The evolution of culture of that business takes much longer to get through. And insurance is, even if you go into the London Market building, Lloyd's of London building, it's still full of bump and ceremony, isn't it? Because that's culturally what's behind the business. And that's why I think the digital transformation, the availability of tech has been there for a while. We haven't been implementing it because the cultural shift, the changing minds on FaceTime, or how a certain type of individual works, that takes a bit longer. And this is obviously going to, I think, be a catalyst, because we now see what it's like to do it without being able to do all the other things. So
Well,
hopefully they'll.
Using your example, Lloyd's of London, there's nobody in Lloyd's of London right now.
No.
Now, how is that going to be accelerated to the point where, well, does anybody need to go back to Lloyd's of London?
Good point.
So I think people that understand all those points are going to be in demand. How do you affect that change? Across it, it'll be. I suspect there's going to be a lot of M&A stuff coming out of this.
I expect so too.
As well. So that I got to look at everything positively. I think quite negative at the end of the day on everything, but not positive as in terms of profiteering off of somebody else's misfortune, but the idea that there's an opportunity to rebuild and grow and do things, and as you said, that this might accelerate some of those, which in the long run would be a better thing anyways. And this is just, I think, shining a light on it, saying, you have to have this kind of stuff happening, and isn't it going to be more efficient anyways?
Yeah, I think we have to focus on the positives, because otherwise we'd all be pretty bleak right now, right? The economy's, this is completely uncharted territory, isn't it? An economy to freeze for however long is an unusual place to be. So I think any positive spin we can put on it is a good thing right now. How do you think that they will manage the return the other side? Because Goldman's, I think, have reported that they are going to do sort of 50% in, 50% off for the next however long to keep their rotation of staff.
You mean in terms of protecting and not infecting?
Yeah.
I think everybody will probably take a different route. I mean, the terminology A team, B team concept was quickly adopted. And again, it's very interesting because unlike invoking business continuity plans, which most of these institutions in financial services have had something in place for quite some time. As I told someone the other day, many years ago when I came to London, it was actually in response to the regular threats from the IRA that would invoke some sort of use of backup plans. And so the difference that one is that you and I could both go and that'd be fine. And in this new world, well, you may be on the A team and I'm on the B team. The point is we don't want to interact because that unseen infection that could occur. So it's a very different. So what I have heard is there is a little bit of a problem with calling things A team, B team, because then it starts to evoke this sort of stigmatism. Well, which one's the better team? I think
now, David, that you're on the A team, just to be clear.
So I think each organization will probably have to figure out what is its remote infrastructure really capable of doing, and how does that work out? Interestingly, general activity of all of this has spiked a lot of trading activity in place. And we've seen in the U.S. that it's been challenging for the banks to even keep up with the amount of trades and the bank-to-bank or broker-to-broker reconciliations have gone through the roof. And I think it's a combination of a few different things. Volatility in the markets and the amount of trades that are going on, transition from being in a building where everybody's operating to actually having a remote operations, but then not having it completely kitted out and not being able to touch the processes and the people and the technology all in one go has created a lot more challenges. So you're seeing that as a knock-on effect, and therefore, will you be able to address that in this remote working, or is that going to require still on site to deal with the intensity of which that volume spike is created? But I think, as I said before, people will want to probably certainly get back in, certainly the social animals of us will want to get back and be in the office sooner rather than later. But people will probably be a little bit cautious. I think everybody's watching what's going on in China and seeing how they're easing back into it.
Sweden have taken quite an unusual approach, haven't they? I think Sweden and Belarus are like putting their hands up against all lockdown, and everyone else in the world is going, maybe we have to do that now. I think that you're right. I think there's a social element of getting us all back in, but then also the productivity. I think there becomes a point where everyone, at the beginning, we're all excited, and then just keeping that connectivity and productivity to the extent. I think there needs to be some movement in the market in order to do that. But I guess we'll see how that pans out over the next 6 months. But yeah. All right, I'm gonna call time on this now because I've got the dog like everybody else. But it was so good catching up, David. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, really good to see you. Is everyone well in your family? Everyone all right?
I think it's just cabin fever.
Yeah, same here. Massive levels of cabin fever. I am ready to get. Like I say, I'd pay £100 for a cup of coffee in a coffee shop right now.
Yeah. But my only positive is that it's been such a low pressure. There's been no waves at all, so I'm not missing. Even though they're closing all the beaches around the world, but I watch. I go onto my websites for surfing, and everybody's the same way. They're watching old films.
There's a positive spring you can get on this. I couldn't get surfing even if I was allowed out. All right, Hannah, I'll catch up with you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.